They're 15 hours ahead of us.
Saturday.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Finally, that got caught
so I
in
had my
something
golf shirt on, and then
that was just like a pile of garbage,
cut
like
the
scrap
grease my
metal out of the
last
back.
two lads
Like,
next
I'm
to
afraid to fire that.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't control where it's gonna go, and it can go a quarter mile, like,
Yeah.
okay, guys, we're ready. Just put them on fire.
I could give you the one.
Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the City Council, City of DeKalb, July 10, 2017. I'd like to ask City Clerk Sue Herman to call the roll of the City Council, please.
Jacobson?
Here.
Fanouken?
Here.
Markwart?
Here.
Fagan?
Here.
Noriko?
Here.
Verbic? Favor?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
7 present.
Mike Verbeek is on vacation and does have an excused absence from tonight's City Council meeting. I'd like to ask Police Officer Kelly Sullivan to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Kelly? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Council, you should have had the agenda prepared for you. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Having none, I'd ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Noriko,
Second.
second by Alderman Fagan. Roll call, please.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
I now ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Jacobson,
Second?
second by Favor. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
There are no public hearings scheduled for this evening, so we'll go into special items or presentations and citizens' comments. Our first special item is Proudly DeKalb. I'm told there is nothing under Proudly DeKalb tonight. Is that correct? Thank you. Presentations. Executive Director Ellen Rogers of the Voluntary Action Center is with us tonight. Ellen will do the FY 2017 Human Services Funding Annual Report from VAC. Ellen, hi.
Hi. This is on? Okay. You don't hear from this side of it. Thank you all for inviting me to present tonight. And, you know, especially thanks to the mayor, the council, city staff, and most importantly, the citizens of DeKalb for its longstanding support of Voluntary Action Center. That support began back in the revenue sharing days and continued once that program ended. The city decided that certainly not only Voluntary Action Center, but many other agencies were important to the flavor and the makeup of the community. With VAC, our partnership certainly grew in the 1980s, and that was when the public money, or federal money, became available for public transportation. And that is, I think, really the tremendous strength of our relationship that has endured over the years, and we sustained many changes together. Today, we're looking forward to the Transportation Development Plan being completed. That has been an activity of the DSATs and city staff, and looking to the future of what the public transportation in DeKalb will look like, and certainly affecting also Sycamore and Cortland as also members of the urbanized area. We're very excited by the prospects of this plan. Certainly greater availability of funding for transportation, not only enhancing the fixed route or deviated route system, but also our paratransit. And I think strengthening our partnership, but also bringing NIU into the partnership of providing a great transit system within the city. We look forward to the opportunity of working with other communities and bringing those folks into DeKalb, which we all understand is economically a good thing. So we appreciate being a part of that process. It's been a challenging couple of years for the VAC, and not only us, but I think every human service agency. Certainly, with the budget in hand from Springfield, I'm wallpapering my office with that budget, just to make sure that yes, it is there. But that has really, I think, will help. We had tough times. We had to greatly reduce our Meals on Wheels program. Certainly, the efforts of a DeKalb citizen and other DeKalb citizens helped us improve that program and restart. But it's taken us a while to get back to where we were before the budget crisis. And we've eliminated much of the waiting list. We still have a small area that remains unserved, and that's really because we've maxed out. We can only have a route last so long and ensure the safety of the food. So we're working on some ideas in which we can expand a route and then be able to serve everybody in DeKalb that is in need of Meals on Wheels. And that is one of the core programs funded by the Human Service. Also, the Human Service funding provides match for the state and federal grant that we utilize to provide the public transportation within DeKalb, and that is the monetary contribution that is made specific to that grant by the city. So we're very, very grateful for that. We're looking forward to this year being a much better fiscal year for everyone, and cannot say enough appreciation. I was drawn to, on my Sirius radio station, drawn to the 80s, and I was like, why? Well, that's when we started together, and I went, my God, I've been at city council meetings now almost 30 years. New faces, but still the tremendous commitment to making life better, within the city of DeKalb, and we thank you. Any
Thank you, Ellen.
questions?
Yeah, we may have a comment or two. Any comments or questions of Ellen on our 2017 VET report? Ms. Noriko.
Thank you very much for the services you and VAC provide, for citizens, especially, with Meals on Wheels. I have a question. Do you know the numbers that you had to drop in terms of service because of the budget impact?
Well, at one point, we had 80 people on our waiting list, but probably it impacted about 125 folks, now, countywide. Yeah, it was such a difficult time and very, very sad.
Thank you.
Things are good.
Again, thank you for your services.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions? Ellen, a number of us in the community and a few of us here
Just
on
a
this
few.
podium have been around the block a few times together
Yeah.
as it relates to cooperating. And we appreciate what VAC does for our community. And thank you for making this report tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I'll possibly talk to you a little bit later, I understand.
Yeah, I
There's a
understand.
bus
That's
on
right.
the
Thank
agenda.
Next item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the mayor's appointments. One consideration for council approval tonight, appointment of Tashina Briggs to the DeKalb Public Library Board for the completion of a 3-year term through June 30th, 2018. Tashina will be filling the 3-year term that Veronica Garcia could not continue to serve because she is moving from the community. I think all of you saw Tashina's letter to me indicating her commitment to serve. I've talked with her several times. I've talked with Emily Faulkner, the executive director of the DeKalb Public Library, and she sees Tashina and her husband, Tashina's husband, and their son at the library many, many times, and so she felt that Tashina would be a very, very good appointment. I'd ask for a motion to approve this appointment.
So moved.
Been moved by Noriko,
Second.
second by Markwart. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Markwart,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
Excuse me. Moving on now to public participation. I have several forms for folks who would like to speak tonight, but they're going to speak on items that are on our agenda. And I'm going to take it, Steve, that you're going to be talking about the UDO as opposed, in addition to the impact fee waiver. Is that right? Steve Capitan, okay. Anyone wishing to speak on items not on our agenda? If not, let's move along then to the next item on our agenda, and that is the consent agenda. As you know, at home, all items listed on the consent agenda are enacted by one motion. There's not a separate discussion on these items unless requested by a council member, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda. The following items are on the consent agenda for this evening. Approval of city council minutes. A, minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of June 12, 2017. B, minutes of the regular city council meeting of June 12, 2017. C, approval of executive session minutes. Number 2, receive and file. Accounts payable and payroll through July 10, 2017 in the amount of $2,396,375.43. Item B, investment and bank balance summary, May 2017. Item C, year-to-date revenues and expenditures for the general fund and water fund excuse me, through May 2017. Number 3, Resolution 2017-084, seeking permission to regulate traffic on Illinois Route 38 between First Street and 10th Street and the intersection of Illinois Route 23 and Illinois Route 38 on Friday, July 28, 2017, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the purpose of holding the Kishwaukee Festival Parade and authorizing a special event agreement for the Kishwaukee Festival. I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make the motion.
Been moved by Alderman Fagan,
Second.
second by Alderman Favor. Roll call, please.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
I now ask for a motion to approve the listings on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Fanouken,
Second.
second by Alderman Favor. Roll call, please.
Noriko,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Moving along. Item G, items for separate action. Number 1, ordinance 2017-031, approving a special use permit for a public school to allow for a modular classroom at 1121 School Street. That's Little John Elementary School. I take a motion to get this item on the floor.
So moved.
Been moved by Markwart,
A second.
second by Fagan. And I'm going to ask now Principal Planner Dan Olson to come to the podium to speak on the item. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The school district is requesting the placement of a mobile classroom at Little John Elementary School on School Street. A public school is a special use in the zoning district, the single-family residential district. So the school district applied for a special use to bring the site into compliance. We didn't have any record of a special use for that location since the building was built in 1954. The school district's wishing to place a 70-foot by 24-foot mobile classroom just to the west of the school building itself, just south of the asphalt playground area. The school has about 450 students in K through 5. They're looking for some additional space. They need some additional classroom space for a 5th grade classroom. In addition, the school needs more space for student support meetings and breakout areas. So the new modular classroom will provide space for the current music room and media center, and that will allow more room inside the building for the 5th grade classroom, which they need. And the school district's indicating they'll need the classroom for 3 years, based on their projections. Per Illinois law, the Regional Office of Education actually issues a building permit for the work and does the inspection, not the city. And I understand that they've applied with all the applications they need to through the REO office and waiting for issuance of those. So they're looking to, if approved, place the mobile classroom on site in early August, just in time for the classes when they start on August 23rd. The mobile classroom will be located just south of the hard surface play area. There's a site plan in your packet showing the location of that. Actually, they had a mobile classroom at that location a few years ago and moved it to Lincoln School. It'll be a mobile classroom that's constructed of a wood-based siding product and will be Hampton gray in color. There's a image in your packet showing how that mobile classroom will look. With the site plan, they also updated the parking for the city on there to ensure that there's enough parking spaces. There's 62 parking spaces required, and there are currently 72 spaces on the site. All the parking's north of the building, and there's 3 handicap spaces too. The Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on the petition on June 21st. The commission recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. We had 2 members absent. They felt that the special use would not be detrimental to the area. There'd be a benefit to the school district, certainly, and recommended unanimous recommendation. There were 4 conditions. 1, the site plan that was part in your packet was approved. The mobile classroom could stay on the site for 3 years, as indicated is the need by the school district. A photometric plan or lighting plan would be submitted within 30 days. There was a request by our police department to perhaps add some additional lighting in that area to deter any criminal activity, and the school district has already worked on getting a lighting plan to show that. And also the trash dumpsters, there's a couple of trash dumpsters in that area that they've agreed to screen within 60 days of approval of the special use permit. During the public hearing, we didn't have anybody speak for or against the proposal. We did have 3 citizen response forms from 3 neighbors submitted, all in support of the request. The ordinance presented does have a few slight modifications. The district has 60 days to submit the photometric plan, install the lighting. As I said, they've already submitted plans to the staff, meeting the requirements. And additional language added to this ensure once the mobile classroom is removed that the surface underneath is restored to the grass or sod as had before. And the school districts agreed to all these conditions. So staff would recommend approval of the ordinance as prepared. The special use will not be detrimental to the area. It'll be benefit to the community, and the school district, allow the school district to serve the educational needs of the students. The district did submit a letter requesting waiver of second reading. You have that in your packets, and per the city council policy, You can entertain waiving the second reading if the commission recommended approval by unanimous vote, which they certainly did. I would just say that the school district's been very good to work with and a very smooth process in terms of request. And we have 2 representatives from the school district here if you have any questions for them. Tammy Carson, Director of Facility Operations for the district, and also Cindy Carpenter, she's the CFO for the school district, are here if you have any questions for them or myself.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for that report. Any further discussion or questions from City Council? Are there any, even though nobody has registered to comment on this from the public, is there anybody in the audience who would like to address this issue?
Okay.
If not, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I'd ask for a motion to approve this ordinance as presented.
Make that motion.
Oh, it's been made, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's been made, okay. And roll call vote, please.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fabian?
Yes.
Excuse me. Noriko?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
I now ask for a motion to waive second reading on this.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Fanouken,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Noriko. Any discussion?
Alderman Fanouken, is that waive second reading and approve?
Yes.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And thank you to our school board representatives for going up and not having to say anything. That's not too bad, is it? Okay. Let's move on. Item number 2, ordinance 2017-032, authorizing the implementation of impact fee waivers for new construction permits in the Knowles, River Mist, Devonair, Wineberry, Summit Enclave, South Point Greens, Meadow Ridge, and Hidden Grove subdivisions. I'd ask for a motion from one of our aldermen to open the item for discussion.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Noriko,
Second.
second by Alderman Fanouken. Community Development Director Joe Ellen Charlton will initially address us on this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you're aware, the council last discussed this item at your June 26th Committee of the Whole meeting, and you provided direction to staff to come back to you at this meeting with an ordinance bringing forth some of the recommended impact fee waivers. At that point, we looked at waiving the city's portion of the impact fee and not getting into any of the school or park district impact fees. So the ordinance that you have before you is very specific to what we talked about at the last meeting in that regard. We did also talk about property tax impact fee waivers as well as a potential sales tax impact fee waivers. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more in a minute, but I think what we're proposing at this point is just to move forward with the city's impact fee waivers. The ordinance is very specific. The mayor read the subdivisions in which this program would specifically apply to. I know we had some questions via email today from some residents that wanted to make sure that we're questioning whether this would apply to newly annexed properties or things that would be coming into the community that aren't already here. And the answer to that is no. The ordinance very specifically lists the subdivisions that this would be allowed in, and they are subdivisions that were already platted. We have quite a few homes constructed, but also quite a few vacant lots in those subdivisions. And it's the intent of this program to focus on the development of homes on those single-family lots. Again, as I also mentioned, this is just the city impact fee being waived. The school district impact fee and the park district impact fee is not part of what is included in your ordinance for consideration. We're also giving it a try. We know that we've had limited permit activity in the last couple of years, so in response to some of the questions about do we know whether this will be effective, I think the answer to that, of course, is no, we don't know for sure, but we have testimony from the last meeting from Mr. Anderson, who said he suspects that there will be some permits that will be requested as part of this, and they feel like it's something that would be a nice gesture to stimulate new development for those projects. The amount of permits that will be eligible under this program is the first 100. I don't know if we'll have, 10, but if we have 10 permits come through yet this calendar year, that would be progress from not having any permits at all. The ordinance does also require staff to follow up with council through your budget process to give you annual updates on this project. So as we're moving into the budget cycle in August and September, hopefully we'll have something positive to report to you, and we can continue to evaluate the program and adjust accordingly. So I think that is the plan. The amount of the fee waiver would range from $2,600 to about $3,800. Again, it kind of depends on where you're requesting the permit. Different subdivisions that came in at different times are subject to different types of permitting requirements. As I mentioned, the council did also talk briefly about both property taxes and sales taxes in some type of program that we could add to this. We're suggesting that we further consider that and perhaps think about that at a later time. There was a little bit more details as we were thinking about it in both of those programs that we would need to vet out a little bit more carefully than we had in the 2 weeks since the council last took a look at this. So if you have comments or questions about what I outlined in the report, I would encourage you to either ask them or follow up with staff, and we will continue to evaluate those programs as well. The problem with the property tax is just the timing. We don't really see the revenue in a property tax coming to us for up to 3 years after a permit is issued. So unless the council is in a position to want to guess what that tax would be, we really don't have a good way to calculate that. The sales tax rebate also, while it sounds good on its face value, has a few issues that make it pretty hard to audit. How do we know what people are buying, or if they're buying it and not taking it back? How long do we do it for? I think it would be a great tool for us, but I feel pretty confident we would need to have some pretty good application materials, some rules. We'd need to promote it so that people would know exactly what types of expenses are eligible to fall under that program. So again, the ordinance is pretty straightforward about what this applies to. We do have, Ken Anderson is also in the audience again today. He may have some additional comments about the recommendation, and I would encourage him to ask any questions that he might have. But other than that, our options are outlined in the staff report, and you can approve it as presented. You can provide us with some additional direction on any additional changes that you'd like to see. If you'd like us to do this and continue to work on some of the others, we certainly are happy to do that as well. Or you can also reject the proposed incentive program, and we move forward as we have been. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joellen. And prior to any discussion by any of our city council members, I'd like to ask some folks who have indicated they'd like to speak to the issue. You mentioned Ken Anderson. We also have Chuck Shepard and Steve Capitan, who have indicated they'd like to speak to this issue. Ken, if you'd like to be first, please.
It's always good to be number one, right? Thank you, Mayor, council members, citizens, staff. We're heading in the right direction. We're doing the right thing here. There's some things, as Joellen mentioned, that we need to work on. The incentives for the sales tax and the property taxes. We can work those out. There are similar programs throughout the state of Illinois. You're probably very familiar with them, called enterprise zones. Those zones are strictly limited to commercial and industrial development. But my point is the wheel's been created there, so we just maybe need to copy and paste some of those ideas to make this work. But in the meantime, this is a great step forward. We applaud the council for jumping on board on this and getting this done. There's one little bit of language that I would like to perhaps ask that we could change. in the ordinance, and that's in the second whereas, where it says, for the first 100 construction permits on existing vacant lots, I'd like that to read, single-family detached residential plots existing as of January of this year. I think that just really clears it up really, really good as far as what areas would be involved and not involved. Again, it's just a suggestion. You can change it however you want or not change it at all. But again, thank you for getting the ball going on this, and we look forward to starting a good marketing program with our association, and hopefully we can get DeKalb back on the front of everything, and we'll start building some new homes in the city of DeKalb. Thank you again.
Ken, thank you. Ken represents the DeKalb County Builders and Developers Association. Our next speaker is Chuck Shepard. And Chuck, if you would identify yourself and who you're representing, please.
Chuck Shepard, Shepard Construction, building contractor, also landowner of Devonair with some other people. And I guess I would also reiterate Ken's request that it's a waiver for single-family detached residential platted lots. You know, not attached single-family, but detached single-family.
Chuck, can you repeat that for me one more time?
Okay, a waiver for single-family detached residential platted lots. In other words, we don't want attached single-family in this. You know, so the person would have what we would consider a single-family home with their own front yard, backyard, side yards, et cetera, et cetera. Not to sound like a broken record, you know, I was here 2 weeks ago and kind of went through a number of things. But what we have done in this community, we have inadvertently created a case study and have almost had 10 years without any housing starts. Let's try something. You know, everyone always wants studies and et cetera, et cetera. We did it. We've had a study. We have no building going on. And your national retailers need rooftops if they are going to continue to stay in this community. And we are not creating any new rooftops. We did meet now back to my position on the Builder Association. We met, Ken and I met with the president and the superintendent of 428 and Cindy Carpenter, the CFO, yeah, thank you. And last week, but it was the day that they were just voting on the budget in Springfield. And without an established budget, they were kind of not focused on what we were saying. So we're hoping that with the now having an established budget at the state level, we're very optimistic that we'll be able to come to some agreement with them also.
Thank you, Chuck. Steve Capitan, you've indicated a desire to speak on this ordinance, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Capitan, 3rd Ward. As alderman between 1995 and 2007, I fought for some years to establish impact fees on behalf of existing residents. Under the current stalled growth in the city, I don't oppose the limited fee waiver, but I think it is important that the council keep in mind the role of impact fees and their impact on easing the tax burden of existing residents to pay for the extension of the city's roads, water, police, fire, and school capacity. As far as the sales tax and property tax rebates, my belief is that they would be administratively burdensome, unfair to current residents, and could be gamed by the recipients. Staff alluded to that gaming possibility. I am skeptical that there would be that the forms would be able to overcome people's creative activity in gaming this system. And again, it would be unfair to the current residents that would be, in effect, indirectly subsidizing those rebates. Ultimately, though, promoting and enhancing the attractiveness of DeKalb as a place to live, build a business and raise a family is really what is needed to attract residential growth. It was mentioned by Chuck, I think, that the national retailers look for rooftops. That's true. But it's the city's responsibility, I think, in terms of focusing on its core use or its core activity as building up the attractiveness of the city overall. And that you've discussed that in many ways, including in many circumstances, including being business friendly, a safe city, an attractive city, a place people want to be. That's the focus I think the city needs to be keep their focus on. And the other thing is in terms of the resources, acknowledgement that the lack of a funding source for roads. You know, we shouldn't forget that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for your past service as alderman for the city of DeKalb. Before I turn it over to any discussion or any question from our alderman, I too have received some communiques from the public, both of them against tonight's ordinance. One simply stated that they didn't feel, much like Steve, that this was reaching the core issue. The second one suggested that we have a committee of the whole meeting on impact fees. Didn't we just do that? Didn't we have a meeting just several weeks ago for impact fees and incentives? So I appreciate the comments. I appreciate public input. We have looked at this, I think, as a city council, and I'm going to ask for further discussion now. We realize that this is not the sole fix. This is not going to bring hundreds of thousands of folks applying for housing permits. But I think what I heard the city council, or at least some members saying last time, is, hey, let's start someplace. And perhaps we've drug our feet a little bit too long before we start something like this. Given that, further discussion, please.
Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
The suggestion from Mr. Anderson and Mr. Shepherd, I think that's a great suggestion that staff supports completely. We would suggest putting that in section 2 of the resolution instead of in the whereas, and that's something council could do by an amendment if you sought to do so.
Could we do that tonight?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, let's talk about this original ordinance. Any further discussion? Alderman Fagan.
When we had the COW on this, we talked about, and I'm directing this Mr. Anderson here, is time frame on this, where we're in the middle of coming up to middle of July. Are you looking for a waiver of the second reading on this?
We sure would like one, yes. As we stated at the last meeting at the City of the Whole, or Council of the Whole meeting, the time is of the essence right now. I mean, we're in the middle of July. Building permit time is running out, the time we submit the permit and get all the paperwork going and start digging. We're gonna be running out of time if we keep sitting around. So, yes, we'd appreciate the quick action and response.
I've got one other question. Has there been anyone else, Joellen, that has pulled permits this year for a single family in these subdivisions?
Interestingly, we just had one permit application that was submitted and reviewed and ready to go. And when we advised them that this action may be taking place, they're choosing to hold off until they find out what the council's decision is.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Kate.
I too have received some emails on this subject. I do think that our previous discussion, the opportunity to discuss the issue today, has given citizens as well as council members an opportunity to get information on the subject, raise issues, and so forth. I do appreciate the fact that this is a trial, And therefore, using the figure of 100 permits makes sense to me. You know, if those 100 permits go in 3 months, great. You know, we can revisit this issue. I also agree that we need to try something. I recognize, as one of my email writers pointed out, there aren't any studies that show that this does have an impact. But to the best of my knowledge, there aren't any studies that show it negatively impacts it, and Lord knows we can't be more negatively impacted than we've been up to this point. So I think, you know, making a reasonable effort to try to incentivize development is a good thing, and so therefore I support this proposal.
Any further discussion? Bill?
I'd like to offer the amendment to Section 2 that council has advised. So, Dean, if you would put in the appropriate language, please.
It would be an amendment to reflect that it would be limited to the first 100 new construction permits issued for single-family detached residential lots existing as of January 1, 2017.
Thank you.
Is there a second to Alderman Fanouken's amendment?
Second.
Second by Alderman Markwart. Any further discussion on that amendment? Roll call, please, on the amendment.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Any further discussion on the original motion?
I would make
Yes.
a motion to waive second reading.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We can't do that
We
till we
can't do it
approve
yet.
it.
I think we have to first vote on that initial motion, Tony.
Jumping ahead.
You know, you've been jacking me up these last few weeks. You know? So let's, yeah, so no further discussion. Did you have original discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mike, please.
Okay. Just because I want to get it straight in my head and educate myself a little bit more on this and maybe somebody at home. The water impact fee, what can we spend that money on? So we collect $1,340 from somebody. Where does that money get spent?
Is that the Water Capital Fund?
Yes, so that would typically cover the costs of constructing expansions to the water system, whether it be the cost of making future expansions to the distribution system or future storage or future production. As staff has evaluated those impact fees, we are fortunate to have parts of our system are aged, but we have a very robust water system and we have more capacity than we have use for at the moment. So if this incentive worked, we have more than enough capacity to service 100 additional single-family residential houses.
Okay, so it doesn't actually install the water pipes on the property, correct?
The individual developers would be running all the water mains, and those are, I believe, installed in place on all of the subdivided lots, and then they would still install the individual connections, and they would still purchase a water meter. This wouldn't waive the water meter cost.
Okay, so it's not covering the actual hookup for that. Okay, transportation fee, $250, or the roadway contribution. What do we use that money for?
Similarly, it's for long-term capital road costs, and I believe at the time it was implemented, it may have also been viewed as a means of funding certain interim road, kind of like a road transition fee for road maintenance expense.
Okay, and once again, the developer puts in the roads, correct? In the
Roads
subdivision?
are already in the subdivision.
Okay. Therefore, that is my issue with impact fees. So I believe this is a good first step, but you're going to find that I think that they should go away altogether. And that's my opinion on them, because the developer is already paying to put that stuff in the ground and make the lots buildable. As part of that, the developer
recovers part of that in the sale of their lots to the individual buyers. So there's already a mechanism in place to pay for that, correct? And I understand wanting to get money into coffers to pay for future things and so on and so forth. And there's also an argument that this is a way to get money before property taxes are assessed and collected. And I can understand that too, except for we don't use the property taxes that we collect as a city to pay for any of that type of stuff. We use that to cover our pension costs. So it's not, that argument is not matching up. It's however you're dividing up the dollars on those ways. Okay? And users, someone builds a house and they start paying their water bill, they're going to be paying our rates, and we already have part of that fee going into that water capital fund on an ongoing basis. So, do we know, like, the other impact fees, like the school district impact fee, what that can go to?
I think the schools are certainly more of that instance where you need to have that coverage while you're waiting for the delay in the taxes to be received. So in some cases, we have a school impact fee that's paid to help pay for the additional children, but then we also have transition fees which help make up for that time frame between when the students are there and when the taxes are received 2 or 3 years down the road.
Okay.
If I could perhaps clarify a little bit as well. So there are, in the realm of impact fees, there are traditional impact fees and there are transition fees. Transition fees are often imposed by school districts where single-family residential is being built because there's still lag in the property tax system where they may get kids from the property on day one but may not receive property tax revenue for 18 or 24 months thereafter. When we're talking about impact fees and we're talking about 100 houses here, and certainly this proposal has full support of staff, but if you look at impact fees on a larger basis, like if we look at something like the Iron Gate development, which I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say there's around 1,000 or 1,200 units in that development. If it's 1,000 units, if it was 1,000 single-family houses, when you're ordinarily looking at and trying to calculate using the EPA's formula for water use, what impact that's going to have on our system, it would be 1,000 units times 3.5 people per unit times 100 gallons per day. So that subdivision, when it's fully built out, would use 350,000 gallons of water per day, and for the sanitary district would generate close to that in sewage inflow on a daily basis. So the developer is going to put in the roads, and they're going to put in their on-site water mains, and they're going to put in the sidewalks and those on-site improvements. But in the ordinary course, they're not going to put in 1/3 of a million gallon storage tank or pay for part of a water storage tank. And when you get into developments like that, or when you look at 10 separate 100 house developments all around the city, then you start generating the need for those greater improvements. So you start looking at the impact on collector streets that are outside of that neighborhood that are now going to be servicing more traffic, or there may be a need for traffic signals or need for additional equipment to service those residents' needs. So this, when we talk about our current water system, Director Holdeman can tell us how robust it is at current. When you look at on a larger basis or over a longer term at more development, certainly the council may wish to spend some time revisiting our fees and making sure that they're aligned with where our needs are and what our true impacts are. But developers do utilize city services, and it's certainly a council policy decision to what extent they should be paying for them.
Mike, are your questions answered for the most part?
For the most part. I just, for the rest of us that are longtime DeKalb residents, we've gone through and we've paid our taxes, and we've paid our property taxes, and we've paid the school district, and so on and so forth, often many years without having any effect on, some of those services. So from my viewpoint, these people, you know, we're paying for other people who have kids in school. You know, I could petition to say I don't want any, to pay the school district part of the property taxes. I don't have any effect on them, you know? But that's not the case. So it's kind of a shared responsibility to pay that the way our current funding is set up. And I guess I'm going to have to find out more about the school impact fees because I think it's limited on that part too, so.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any further discussion? If not, roll call on the original amendment, please, or on the original ordinance.
As amended.
As amended. As amended.
As amended, right.
Markwart,
Yes.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
I would entertain a motion for a waiver of second reading.
I would make a motion to waive second reading and approve the ordinance.
Second, Tony?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call.
Fagan,
Yes.
Noriko,
Yes.
Favor,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Fanouken,
Yes.
Markwart,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to all those who addressed this issue tonight. And let's move on to item number 3 on tonight's agenda. Ordinance 2017-033, amending Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance for miscellaneous text amendments. This will be our first reading. I need an alderman to put this on the floor, please.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Markwart,
Second?
second by Alderman Favor. Dan Olson, our principal planner, will explain this to us.
Thank you. Proposes amendment to Chapter 23 of the Municipal Code, which is our Unified Development Ordinance. There's some miscellaneous text amendments proposed. One note, there's a revision to the ordinance and memo from the initial publication last week regarding Article 19, which is non-conforming situations. There was some discussion or dialogue, questions and concerns raised regarding the changes to that article. So all references to Article 19 in the memo and the ordinance have been removed, and we'll further discuss those and bring forward to the council at a future date proposed amendments after a discussion by the commission, a public hearing, and more public input on those related to the change of ownership on property when that occurs and the effect on non-conforming situations. So we'll move on to the other proposed amendments. They're ready for review by the council. The Planning and Zoning Commission initially had discussions on these miscellaneous amendments at their May 17th meeting. They're related to Article 3 definitions, to add a use and a definition for banquet hall and social club. Article 5, that's the zoning district regulations, to add social club as a special use in the general commercial district. Article 14, permits. 18, appeals and variances. 20, amendments to modify the language regarding legal descriptions of public hearing notices, who can initiate amendments, and requiring applicants to publish and mail public hearing notices. And then the vast majority of the articles in the UDO, we tried to clean up regarding the appropriate reference to the appointed bodies, city departments, and personnel. From the discussions, the commission, we prepared a public hearing notice and set a hearing date of June 21st in front of the commission. A little more detail in the background with Article 3, the definitions. The business regulations chapter of the Municipal Code 32 has a provisions and definition for social clubs that was added in 2014. The chapter includes a definition for social clubs and various regulations. However, that's not listed in the UDO as a permitted or special use. There's potential issues and conflicts with that particular use being classified as one of the other uses listed in the UDO. Banquet hall is one of those uses, which could encompass a social club. So there was a need to define both of those. Banquet hall was not even defined in the UDO, It was listed as a use in the district, so it was listed as a special use in the light commercial district and a permitted use in the general commercial district and our central business district. So definition for banquet hall has been prepared. We looked at other municipality zoning ordinances for language that made sense and fit and could distinguish that between a banquet hall and social club. So we came up with a definition that's listed there in the memo and the ordinance. It's not open to the public, and the use is therefore restricted to the invitees of the party contracting for the use of the facility. It includes certainly kitchen facilities, sale of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption, outdoor gardens, reception facilities, etc. And finally, we indicated the banquet hall shall not include a social club as defined in the municipal code. The definition for a social club in the chapter 32 will stay. We'll just reference that definition. Those are open to the public and not have liquor license are kind of the key components of that definition. So there's a clear distinction between the two uses now with the proposed language. So with the distinction there, we're planning to leave banquet halls as a special use and permitted use where they currently are right now, not changing that at all. And then we'll add social club as a special use in the general commercial district. That district has larger sites, has more lighting, it's more visible, larger parking areas, something that particular use would be appropriate in at certain locations. Amendments to Article 14 permits and 18, which is appeals and variances. The current regulations, this is more kind of procedure, the Community Development Department, we do have the public hearing notice and we send the notice to the newspaper. We also do the mailing to the surrounding owners within 250 feet. That list is provided by the applicant. We're proposing to change that to put more responsibility on the applicant to free up more time for city staff and less costs that we have to incur. We'll still draft up the public hearing notice because that has to be detailed and accurate. And then we'll provide that to the applicant who will send that to the newspaper for publication, which they'll pay for. And also they'll be responsible to mail the letters that we send out, the public hearing notice, to the owners within 250 feet. This will also require an affidavit signed by the applicant indicating when they mailed them out. And we'll certainly guide the applicants and provide the contacts to the newspaper and guide them through the process in terms of timelines, when things have to be done, et cetera. And we certainly have a different group of applicants, some who a resident may do a variance once in their lifetime. We'll make sure they do that right and guide them. There's developers who do a lot of work in other communities, which they're used to this, where they're doing all the mailing and sending it to the newspaper, so they're quite used to this in other communities. So this will also reduce the city's liability if a proper notice is given. Hopefully that won't happen. But again, it's just more the responsibility onto the applicant for those items. Another change, state law allows the public hearing notice for special use permits and variances to not include a meets and bounds legal description if you have a common street address and a PIN number. So we recommend approving that amendment. That will shorten up the legal description of the public hearing notice, which will be less cost to the applicant that they have to put in the paper. So that will shorten up the length of the legal notice for the applicants and reduce their cost for that. Article 20 amendments, that's the text amendments and the zoning map amendments or rezoning. With those, we're proposing that the staff be allowed to initiate text amendments and zoning map amendments. In addition, currently the city council or commission can initiate those. We're not changing that at all. We're just adding that the staff can initiate those. Still have to go through a public hearing process and ultimate approval by the council on those. We're just that will open up the time. If there's text amendments, we can do those a little bit quicker. If we need to, something that needs to go through and save a little bit of time on the approval process. Same with the variances and the special use permits, changing the process where the applicant would submit the notice to the newspaper and do the mailing in the case of a zoning map amendment. And also with the meets and bounds description, taking that out if there's a common street address and PIN number for the parcel. And also throughout the ordinance for most of the articles, just changing the, getting the appropriate name of the department, the Planning and Zoning Commissions to the Plan Commission. The DeKalb Sanitary District recently changed their name, so we're changing that throughout the ordinance. So that's changed throughout. The public hearing on June 21st, the commission recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. We had 2 members absent. Just a reminder, the UDO does require 2/3 supermajority vote when we're amending Article 5 of the UDO, which we do have a couple amendments to that article. So staff would recommend approval of the ordinance as presented. Again, we took out the reference to Article 19, and those will be brought up at another meeting in the future. And we'd also request, if the council chooses, waiver of second reading.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Before council discussion on this, I think Steve Capitan, you wanted to speak to this particular ordinance?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Capitan, Third Ward. This is regarding the public hearing notice element of these changes, proposed changes. I welcome the staff recommendation of eliminating the meets and bounds in the notice of a hearing. They're really not terribly useful for the most part. As well as the inclusion of a summary of the proposed plan, project, or change in proposed. I do feel, however, that a map illustrative of the proposal is important to include in a mailing to nearby property owners, as well as website links to more background information that would be available on the city's website, so that people are able to learn more information through that examination if they so choose, ultimately going to the website, and being better prepared and informed when they show up at a public hearing. I think that ultimately that would facilitate a public hearing as well, because if people have limited information, they might be imagining terrible things are afoot here, and they get to the public hearing and that's not so bad. If they're able to learn that through links to the website with more detailed information prior to the public hearing, I think that would be a win-win situation for the public, the staff, and the city. Thank you.
Dan, do you have any response to that?
Yeah.
Before we have further discussion or
That's
question?
a good comment. We do include in the public hearing notice the site location map aerial with the boundaries of the property. And generally, in the hearing notice, a summary in terms of what's actually being proposed, but I think it's a good idea if we provide a link. I don't know if we need to change the ordinance, but provide a link to somebody. We always indicate they can contact the city or email the city regarding more information or come on in, but providing a link to the website that would include maybe a copy of the plan or other supporting documents, where they can get more information about the project before the hearing is a good idea.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, discussion from the council on this. Yes, Kate?
I have a question about Article 14, the change so that the resident has the obligation to send out the notices and so forth. I can see that for a developer, this probably would not be an undue burden. But I know for a number of issues relating to zoning, we've had relatively small-scale landlords come forward. And, frankly, some of them almost seemed overwhelmed just by the process of, coming to the council meeting. So are some of these smaller scale landlords typically represented by lawyers who could help them through the process? Or what procedural steps would you install so that, it really would be a relatively straightforward process?
Yeah, we would prepare kind of a summary sheet that would go over exactly what the steps are. The applications do kind of mention that now, but links to we still prepare the hearing notice and the letter that would go out to the residents. So all the applicant would be doing is running copies and stuffing in envelopes. They already provide the surrounding owners list. That's already required by them, so they're already providing that. So they just have to put them in the envelopes and, mail them. And the hearing notice we would provide, it would be on the sheet, the summary sheet of the link to the newspaper and what format that should be in. It would be really just a simple email to the newspaper indicating, requesting to be published on a certain date. And they would get the proof back, and we would, certainly ones that were, doing it once in their lifetime, we would make sure, kind of watch them a little bit more to make sure they're doing it appropriately and check up on.
So they would have a specific contact person, whether, I would assume that would be you, who could,
Or
okay.
administrative assistant.
Okay.
Could help them too, who sends in the notice to the newspaper now, and it's quite an easy process, actually.
Okay, I just want, you and the department to be sensitive to the fact that what may be simple and straightforward for you, because you've seen the process through, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of times, for someone who is doing it the first time or the only time, it's like, I have to get this right, I'm never going to be able to get this through unless I do this right. There could be more concern. So, in an effort to be neighbor-friendly as well as business-friendly.
Those we'd have to watch more and make sure.
Yes.
And we would do the hearing notice, which is a key part in terms of making sure it's worded right, all the variances or the rezonings listed correctly. We would still do that. The letters that goes out with the site map and the cover letter, we would still do that. We would just be providing that to them to run out the copies and mail it out in appropriate time, so.
So if the proverbial little old lady like me comes forward, they would be attended to?
Yes, we'll make
Okay.
sure that
Thank you.
done correctly and help them out, yeah.
Kate, has that answered your questions pretty good? Okay. Any further discussion on this? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance as presented. Roll call, please.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markward?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
And Dan, you'd like a waiver of second reading if
Yes,
appropriate?
please.
I entertain a motion. Anyone on the second reading on this?
I move that we waive second reading and approve.
Second.
Moved by Morquart, second by Noriko. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Moving right along, item
Thank you.
number 4, Resolution 2017-085, authorizing an agreement with Northwestern Medicine doing business as Kish Health System for public improvements and site development. I need an alderman to move to get this on the floor, please.
I'd like to make that motion.
Moved by Alderman Fagan,
Second.
second by Alderman Fanouken. Before I turn this over to our Community Development Director, Joe Ellen Charlton, I'd like to make just a couple of remarks. Pardon me. Northwestern Medicine could very easily have requested that this motion, or that this ordinance be removed from tonight's agenda. I could have asked that this be removed from tonight's agenda. However, I've seen our two staffs, the one representing Northwestern Medicine and our staff, work very, very hard. We're not quite ready to vote on an agreement, or on the agreement. The city council has seen the narrative. It was in the packet. But I felt it was very important, not only for the benefit of the public, for the benefit of our city council, to hear a progress report up to the minute from our Community Development Director, Joe Ellen Charlton, on where we are and how close we're getting. Joe Ellen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Dean, did you want to comment on the motion that was made?
Yeah, I think just for the council's consideration tonight, and Joellen's going to touch on the long discussions we've had, as the mayor indicated, but we are not seeking a motion or a vote on this evening.
Thank you. And just to kind of go through a little bit of the background and history on this project, as the mayor indicated, we have been working with Northwestern for the last several months in order to accommodate two parts to their project. So this is a very unusual and complex project. Their new health facility that is under construction on the north end of town is actually in unincorporated DeKalb County. So DeKalb County has jurisdiction over the permitting that is actually occurring with the construction on that site. The site itself discharges its stormwater to the city's stormwater system, both to the north and to the west. And they also deposit their traffic onto Bethany Road at the north end of the site. So both of those are under the jurisdiction of the city of DeKalb. The road intersection is under DeKalb's jurisdiction for about 200 feet before it becomes the city of Sycamore's jurisdiction. So they're also involved. The city of Sycamore also serves this facility with water. So we have this really odd combination of jurisdictions all coming together to provide services to this location. Both parties have been working together to come to a mutually acceptable agreement, and we were originally operating under the assumption that tomorrow was a date critical for them, and that's why we've been working so hard to keep this on the agenda and keep things moving forward pretty quickly. We got their last document on Wednesday, just about the time we were uploading the agenda to the Agenda Center for tonight's meeting. We spent about 48 hours reviewing that document and getting a response back to them, which we did on Saturday, and then we uploaded the new agenda. So one of the things I wanted to do in response to the mayor's request to give a very high overview of this project is talk a little bit about what you see in the document. So the documents that were uploaded to the agenda include both the original agreement that was uploaded on Wednesday, as well as a red line version of that document, which would be an indication of the items that Northwestern responded to, which we then reviewed between Wednesday and Saturday to come up with the more recent staff memo and agreement. Both staff memos are attached because we felt it was important for the council to understand a little bit of the history. But the most recent staff memo does provide you with a very detailed analysis of all of the terms, where we're at, kind of even color codes it for you so you know the items in green that we are agreeing to based on their last request, and outlines in red the items that we're not agreeing to or that we've proposed some modifications to the language, and then provide some narrative as to why we're taking the position that we are. But again, very generally, I want to hit on some high-level items. The intersection improvements themselves. So when this project first went to DeKalb County for consideration, they needed some relief from the county. So it went to the zoning hearing officer, who heard a lot of testimony about this project, including testimony from the city that we had concerns about the proposed traffic improvements that might be needed to service this project. They just had a very basic traffic study at that point, and based on that information, it was clear that a traffic signal was either would be warranted or was very close to being warranted. So the developers in that case agreed to provide the traffic signal, and that was entered into the zoning hearing officer's recommendation as they moved forward. When we finalized that traffic analysis based on the requirement that a traffic signal be provided, we got into a discussion about whether turn lanes would also be required if you're going to add that signal. So if the signal is there, are turn lanes required to minimize the rear end accidents that might happen when you have a signal there? Our analysis differed a little bit, and we had a little bit of disagreement, and there was, of course, the additional costs that go along with providing all of that. And the hospital relayed to us at the time that they had certain limitations on their funding from the state, and they really wanted to stay within those budget levels. So we started a process of negotiating what can we do? Are there any alternatives? Their traffic consultant proposed, and we agreed to take a look at an option that would just provide turn lanes without the turn signal. It sounds a little weird that would be workable when the alternate isn't true, But we did have our traffic consultant take a look at that option, and according to what are called levels of service, or LOS, which is a generally approved or recognized traffic grading system, the intersection as a whole, when we just add the turn lanes without the signals, does operate at an acceptable level of service. And again, that's an average for the whole intersection. What we learned was that in order to be an acceptable overall, you might have failing legs of the intersection. So obviously the people that are northbound and southbound trying to make those left turns are not going to be at that same higher level of service that the rest of Bethany Road, which is flowing through pretty well, is going to be at. So we did have a lot of dialogue and discussion about what does that mean and when would a trigger occur at some point in the future, because Northwestern has always agreed that they would put a signal in at some point in the future when that warrant is met. So we talked a lot about warrants. The MUTCD, which is the same organization that IDOT uses to warrant traffic signals, is the method upon which we're at this point agreeing that we will follow. So in looking at the future trigger for any signal, Northwestern has agreed to provide the city with an escrow account every year. So they're going to pay money into an account, and that money is going to be used to pay for an annual traffic study. And if that traffic study results in the warrants for that signal then being met, they would then come in and provide that traffic signal at that point. So the actual turn lanes, those are going to go in initially so far. And the traffic lanes would go in and be completed upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy or no later than a specific date, which date we're proposing at this point be December 31st of next year. Moving on to some of the stormwater concerns for this project. Their stormwater facility for this particular development connects to both the storm system to the north onto Bethany and to the west on Greenwood Acres. So the connection to the north was made when they got their county permit, and they didn't know it was the city's connection at that point. So we talked to them about that, asked them to submit plans so that we could review them, and then that they would agree not to make any further connections until we've gone through this process. One of the interesting things about stormwater connections is that unlike water connections, where we have procedures in place where people that aren't part of your local government can make a request, connect to the water, pay you a higher rate, pay you a higher fee, we don't have a similar mechanism for stormwater connections. So we started a process of trying to understand what kind of a fee should we charge them. We don't want to allow them a connection to a system that the city residents and businesses have paid for and the city continues to maintain on an annual basis. So we started looking at different ways to come up with a number that would be reasonable in asking them to pay for. We did basically two things. So we looked at what would it cost if they tried to make a connection on their own. They need to get to the Kishwaukee River to deposit their stormwater. So it's not that far. They could get easements. They could construct their own system. And based on that information, our engineers came up with an estimate of anywhere between $250,000 to $400,000 for them to connect their own system, getting them to the Kishwaukee River. The other system that we looked at was just what is the value of our system and how does that compare to the property it serves? So based on some information provided by our Public Works Department, we have a value of our system at just over $19 million, and it serves about 9,500 acres, resulting in about a little over $2,000 per acre. The Northwestern campus has about 75 acres total, so we came up in that particular case with a fee of $150,000. And again, this is anticipated to be a one-time connection fee that would pay for everything that we've put in there so far and the ongoing maintenance that we would have moving forward on the project. I think this is one of the major things that we may have ongoing dialogue about. Their proposal came back to us with a reduction in that fee to $15,000 So I know that's something that we're going to be speaking with them over the next few days as we move forward. A couple of the other major items, and I'm not going to get into all of the minutia because there's quite a bit of detail there. We are interested in making sure there's an appropriate term on the agreement. We started off with 40 years so that we could make sure that we can look at not only the proposed traffic signal and when that's necessary, but how do we evaluate future development when it comes in? This development impacts storm sewers and traffic on our streets. Certainly any certain future expansion they might anticipate would have similar impacts. So we want to make sure we have a process in place so that we don't go through this whole thing the next time. Also, we talked a little bit about the security. So every time we do projects like this for construction, we talk about the percentage of a security deposit or an escrow that's in place to cover any potentially unfinished work. Again, we're just recommending that be at our ordinance regulated provisions of 120%. One of the other things that we've talked about significantly is the measures by which they would notify the city about new development. We're asking them that they notify us not only about new development that might occur, but any change that they might have in the way existing properties are utilized within their development, if it has an impact on additional traffic, for example. We've also talked to them about applicable codes, and we feel pretty strong that we need to have them comply with whatever codes are in place at the time they might be doing a particular future project. So again, we talked about the term of the agreement being, somewhere between 10 and 40 years for future construction. So that construction, in our opinion, would need to comply with whatever provisions the city is, or whatever codes we are standing by at that point. The other reason that's important is because our stormwater management is regulated by the IEPA, and we have a pretty good understanding that future systems may be required to comply with additional requirements. So we don't want to be left with an agreement that is different than we would apply to any other residents in the community by virtue of an agreement. So we want them to agree to adhere to whatever regulations are in place at the time any particular development might be coming forward. So I'm going to stop with that and see, I know there was a lot of information in the packet. If there's any specific questions about any of those projects. Otherwise, again, we are anticipating a meeting with them probably later this week to go through some of the final changes and hopefully bring that back to you for future consideration.
Despite the extensive verbiage that you've extended to us tonight,
That was the high level?
We appreciate that. I must commend the goodwill effort, the good faith effort that I've seen on the part of both Northwestern and our city staff in terms of pounding out an agreement. We're not quite there yet, but what we're asking tonight, since Northwestern has requested additional considerations and the city has also asked for certain considerations, that we continue to move this forward to a future meeting, and that's what I would hope our motion and our second tonight, bringing this to the floor, would do, to move this forward. And Dean, you can correct me if I've stated that wrong, but before we do, if I could just have some council discussion. Bill?
Well, I'll start off just with a question that probably would benefit all of us, since these new connections would connect to our stormwater system. What's the current situation on campus, and do we have any idea what the history of that was?
The current status is that property overflow drains into our system. So there is the water that is naturally flowing across land goes where it goes, and if it happens to go in our system, it's going there. The change is that the county's permit requires the construction of a detention facility to detain and maintain the water until it's then attributed directly and made a direct connection made into the stormwater system.
Okay, so the existing parking lot on the east side of the hospital, for lack of a better description, that stormwater there drains into our system?
I'm not sure about that particular location.
Well, I guess maybe that's, I'm kind of asking the current campus, where does that all drain to?
I believe the existing portion along Sycamore Road drains into detention basins in that area and drains into, essentially the drainage line kind of runs through the middle of the property. Part of it drains to the south and east towards Sycamore Road, towards the culverts and drainage system that is installed along Sycamore Road.
Okay.
That portion of Sycamore Road is the city's responsibility under our maintenance agreement with IDOT. And the IDOT culverts that are in Sycamore Road ultimately drain into the city's stormwater system and utilize that to convey stormwater to the Kish, or further down Sycamore Road, there's a stormwater detention infiltration basin where there's a stormwater system that's kind of like a septic field. There's storm tiles buried that disseminate the water into the soil. Then partway across the property, it breaks and it drains to the north and west towards the Kish. And that portion of it is being converted from the current, grassed permeable area where water can infiltrate and excess water would drain off-site to the impervious area where the water is collected and concentrated in the detention basins and discharged directly into the storm sewer.
All right, well, I just want to make it clear that all of that has been ours anyway, was my point, basically.
That portion that didn't soak in, so on the south half, there aren't any changes, or the south portion of
Right.
it. On the north portion, that portion that
Is not going to
didn't
be
soak
paved,
in
right?
would drain over land, yes.
Okay. And then, Mr. Mayor, since we do have several representatives from Northwestern here tonight, I'd certainly be interested from at least a brief presentation from their point of view, since we've heard the city staff point of view.
It was my understanding, and I know Jay and Charlie are here, is that I think they would prefer to address the council at such time that we have that final agreement in place,
Right.
and we take a look at it. Gentlemen, is that correct? I appreciate your being here tonight. If I were in your position, I would be here tonight too, even though you knew that we were not going to vote on the final agreement tonight.
All right, I certainly understand that. Thank
Sure,
you.
good. What I need from our city attorney is some clear verbiage, if I have not stated it correctly, about what it is that we're going to be voting on, if in fact a vote, in fact, is needed to move this forward.
Well, I would suggest that the current motion that's on the table be withdrawn, and then at the council's preference, you can either not take any action on it, in which case we would return it when it's prepared, or you could move to continue it to a future council meeting. But the council has periodically just not taken action on items, and the consensus has been to return them, and that's what we follow.
Okay. Kate?
I have a question regarding kind of the procedure you're following. You mentioned that there are issues that really relate to Sycamore. And I would assume that Northwestern is engaged in similar discussions with the city of Sycamore?
On this issue, I know they've been engaged with Sycamore specifically on the water connection issue.
Yeah.
Initially, when we started meeting about this project, we were having meetings with all of the parties, so the county, the county transportation, the city of Sycamore, we had everybody in the room. Once it started going too fast for those meetings, we separated out, but did that with the understanding that once we have something in place, we obviously need to pull Sycamore back in, because that left turn lane going westbound will start at a section of Bethany Road that is within Sycamore's boundaries. So we absolutely do need their collaboration and consideration of the improvements, but they're familiar.
So if it's actually within their boundaries, how it can...
The start of the
Oh.
turn lane, and then that's how close all of this is.
Oh
So
my
the
gosh.
actual
Okay.
intersection
Oh, I
itself is
see.
ours.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
start of the turn lane further east is in the city of Sycamore.
Okay, so it kind of simultaneously, while Northwestern is meeting with the city of DeKalb, there are also all these other discussions going on. To what extent do those discussions or decisions impact what the city and Northwestern are trying to work out with this agreement?
We just know that we need to communicate back with Sycamore once we have an agreement moving forward. And then, you know, if there's anything that needs to follow up, we will do that. But our understanding moving, you know, from the early meetings was, you guys go figure out what you need to do, then let us know. And then if we need to become involved in some other form, we can. What we expect is that they would issue, you know, be a reviewer and a potential permit issuer or sign off on the actual permit for the intersection improvement due to the fact that it starts in their jurisdiction.
Okay, so there's a relationship but not necessarily a total tie-in, so to speak.
We have indicated in the agreement that it may also require permits from Sycamore, and
Uh-huh.
we have been in contact with Sycamore's attorney and their engineer.
Okay.
And because the taper does extend into Sycamore, they're aware of it and they're following this. Their only request is that they not be asked to contribute towards any of the road improvements, and they obviously want to review the plans, and
Uh-huh.
so we are fully accommodating their requests.
Mhm, okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Oh,
Tony?
Mayor.
I think it was in part of the previous council meeting where this was discussed, and I think it's in this document too, going to Bill's point that they're currently utilizing the storm sewer, but there was no agreement and we don't have any record of an approval, correct?
That's correct. We looked through building permit records, you know, from the prior construction activity that occurred on the site to see if we had storm connections or roadway improvements, and found no evidence of those types of permits. So we don't know if it didn't exist or if it existed and we just don't have records of it.
Okay. And looking through, and in reading this, I want to commend the staff on going through, because I feel as I read through this that you are looking out for the city's best interest. And as it was stated in here, we don't know what the IEPA is going to require in terms of testing, requirements in the future, and that burden is going to be borne on by the city. And so, again, I just want to say thank you to the staff for the hard work you guys are putting into this to protect the city's interests.
It's been a big effort. We've had, you know, in addition to ComDev staff, we've had Attorney Frieders, Public Works, our traffic consultants and our engineering consultants have all weighed in on this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of activity, and I'm impressed with both staffs. I think the last email I read it on Monday morning at 8:44 from Charlie back there from Northwestern that he had copied me on. I see you waving your hand vociferously, Charlie. Did you want to say something, or?
First off, I forgot to turn this in, so.
Oh, okay, you forgot to turn that in? Should we let him speak? Okay.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, why don't you give that to the city clerk, come over here, identify yourself.
This is what I just asked for.
My name is Charlie Butzer. I'm the Director of Planning and Construction from Northwestern Medicine. I just wanted to answer Alderman Noreko's question regarding agreements with Sycamore. We do, the project does connect our water supply as well as our sanitary sewer line to the city of Sycamore's system, and we do have a connection fee paid for already, and that agreement is done.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Charlie. Any further discussion on this? Who made the motion to bring this to the floor?
I think I did.
Pat, would you,
Can I
move?
move to remove it?
Yeah, can you move to remove it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need-
Made
Get
a motion to
your-
remove it.
He made the motion to bring it to the floor.
Yes, so
Can he-
if,
Can he remove it?
yes, it doesn't require a motion, just the movant and the second can just withdraw their motion.
Was it just withdraw the motion?
Withdraw the motion.
Very good. No vote needed then, right?
Correct.
Good. Okay. All right, thank you, Joellen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Let's move on. Item number 5. And we will move that, item number 4, we'll move that forward, and we'll let you know when we can next make a final decision on that agreement between the City of DeKalb and Northwestern. Okay, item number 5, Resolution 2017-086, authorizing a 5-year retainer agreement with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley Incorporated for consultant engineering services for the DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport. That asks for a motion to bring this to the floor.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Faber, seconded by Alderman Markwart. Airport Manager Tom Cleveland will review this for us. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Public Works is requesting the council to approve this 5-year retainer agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilley. The state of Illinois requires airports that receive federal funding to follow their guidelines in securing an airport consultant engineer. So we have to do this every 5 years for their requirements. The city sent out requests for proposals and received 2 back. We received one from Crawford Murphy and Tilley and Hanson Professional Services. The city formed an airport consultant engineer interview committee. On that committee was Bob Owens, the chairman of the Airport Advisory Board, Bernie Pepino, the vice chairman of the Airport Advisory Board, Tim Holdeman, the Public Works Director, Patrick Didiani, a management analysis, and myself. We interviewed both consultants engineering groups, and the committee has decided to recommend Crawford Murphy and Tilley because of their qualifications, and they have a fresh perspective on DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport. Each airport project that CMT is going to work on in our Transportation Improvement Program, which is our TIPS, will come back to City Council for approval. If the city has Crawford Murphy and Tilley work on any other project that's not on our TIPS, we will have to go by the purchasing manual guidelines and or come back to City Council for approval. So the Public Works requests that the City Council approve the 5-year retainer agreement with Crawford Murphy and Tilley for the DeKalb Taylor Municipal Airport. And I'll entertain any questions. I have Brian Welker from Crawford Murphy and Tilley here also.
Any questions or comments?
Question, if I may?
Yes, Bill.
Tom, what are the dates on this, the start date and concluding date? Because it's not very clear from the material provided.
The start date will be as soon as the mayor signs it. We did, our last contract ran out at the end of June. So it will start today if we approve this.
And then expire 5 years?
5 years from now, correct.
So we have 2 options. We can authorize the 5-year retainer agreement with CMT for consultant engineering services, or we can choose to reject this, your recommendation, Tom, and direct you to pursue other firms with similar experience.
And Alderman Fanouken, it does have a termination for convenience clause on 7 days
I did
written
see
notice.
that.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you, Tom. Item number 6, Resolution 2017-087, authorizing a purchase on a State of Illinois Department of Transportation public transit vehicle state bid price contract with Midwest Transit Equipment, Inc. for the purchase of 11 light-duty and medium-duty paratransit buses in an amount not to exceed $887,190. I'm going to ask Brian Dixon, our transportation planner. First of all, we need a motion to bring that to the floor.
So moved.
Been moved by Alderman Fanouken,
Second?
seconded by Alderman Favor. Brian Dixon, please.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council. As you know, last City Council meeting, we came before you for the purchase of 3 minivans to replace the aging minivans in the that we leased to VAC. Tonight, we are coming before you to move forward on the replacement of 5 light-duty 12-passenger vehicles, paratransit buses, and 6 medium-duty 14-passenger paratransit buses. Currently, the fleet that exists now is exceeded its useful life and beginning to having a lot more maintenance issues on those vehicles. And in working with Alan Rogers and VAC's Assistant Executive Director Paul Lalonde, we have been actively seeking to look at all the assets they use to provide public transit in this region, and we look to move forward with the replacement of these paratransit vehicles. As with the minivans, we intend to go through the IDOT, what they call Consolidated Vehicle Procurement Program, as they have more expertise on all the federal regulations on purchasing of buses to conform with Federal Transit Administration. We have previously already received approval from the Federal Transportation or Federal Transit Administration for the purchase of these replacement vehicles. And it's just a matter of moving forward. There will be no impact to the city's general fund. So I am looking for approval from City Council to move forward with the purchase of these replacement vehicles.
Okay. Any questions of Brian? Bill?
Not a question, but just a point of clarification that there are no city dollars involved here. This is strictly the city acts as a financial agent for DSATs, and these are all federal dollars that are being spent, none of the city funds.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Any further comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Oh, Mayor?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Tony?
So I just look at the numbers and I just have a question. In terms of the ancillary costs, obviously the vehicle lettering and the delivery, to me that seems quite high, but do we expect to really spend $265,000?
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost another van.
We do not anticipate. This is when we submitted the grant to the FTA, that was the amount that we had submitted. I don't anticipate ancillary costs coming anywhere near, but as we have been approved for that much, we're just extended it to the amount that was approved by the FTA for this purchase. I don't anticipate those ancillary costs to be anywhere near that.
And is there a mechanism where after the purchase is made, we get an update on what those costs actually were? It would be nice to know what the final dollar amount, as the stewards of the DSATS fund and not necessarily contributing to it.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Does that answer your questions, Tony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? Roll call.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Markwart?
Yes.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Approved. Item number 7, Resolution 2017-088, authorizing an electrical aggregation agreement with Constellation for city-owned streetlights and traffic controls for a period not to exceed 12 months. I'd entertain a motion to bring this to the table.
So moved.
Been moved by Alderman Noriko.
Second?
Second by Alderman Favor. Management Analyst Pat Didiana is going to make a comment on this. Pat?
Thank you, Council. Recently, ComEd adjusted their rates for their anticipated summer demand. Staff reviewed the rates and with our energy consultant identified an opportunity to save $9,858 for our street lights and traffic control circuits. Although a small increase when consuming over 2 million kilowatts hours per year, any adjustment to the rate can impact expenses. In September, ComEd will release new rates adjustments, and we will review them and continue to work to identify any potential savings for the city and residents. And with that being said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Jacobson.
In looking at the accounts on this one, there's only a few accounts. Where are all the rest of our streetlights billed to?
There's 13 accounts.
Okay.
And those 13 accounts cover specific circuits. I don't know exactly what the mileage is or what areas, but there is a total of 13 accounts that accumulate all of our usage.
And this is all of our streetlights in the city of DeKalb?
Well, some streetlights are maintained by the state, and the rest are maintained by us.
Okay, let me pull it. Give me 1 second. I'm just getting down there in the dock.
Any further comments? So Patrick, if we can either authorize this agreement with Constellation. If we do not, then we default back to Commonwealth Edison. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
We would go
Okay.
back to the ComEd rate, which would then leave us susceptible to their higher rate in the non-summer months. And we burn more, we use more kilowatt hours during the non-summer months because the street lights are on longer. So that's where we can identify, that's where we can get our savings.
Okay. So we will move forward on a roll call to authorize this agreement. Roll call.
Markwart?
Yes. Sorry, I was reading it.
Fagan?
Yes.
Noriko?
Yes.
Favor?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Fanouken?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
7 yes.
Any new or, thank you,
you.
Patrick, any new or unfinished business? If not, reports and communications. First starting with our first ward alderman, David Jacobson.
No
David?
report.
Our second ward alderman, Bill Fanouken.
No report?
Our third ward alderman, Mike Marquardt.
Just like to say thank you to the state of Illinois for whatever they did. And I hope that there's continued progress going forward, and that we can make progress because, as everybody knows, a lot of things go from the state down to the municipalities and the counties and affects what we do in the local area. So any progress that can continue to be made would be welcome.
Thank you. Fourth ward alderman, Pat Fagan.
No report.
Fifth ward alderman, Kate Noriko.
Of course. I just want to remind citizens that this Friday, the 14th, downtown businesses are having an evening event. I understand food's going to be available and probably some special deals in the stores. So I encourage people to get out and shop local.
Thank you. Seventh ward alderman, Tony Favor.
No report.
The mayor does have a couple of items on his report. We've talked a lot about public input and transparency. I want to commend this city council for being advocates of that. Public input. We had it a couple of city council meetings. Since then, we've met with some individuals in our community on FOIA, Freedom of Information. We still aren't to a point where everybody is satisfied, but we're making progress. Public input. We've had some public input on signage in our application of our laws and ordinances. We're working hard with citizens and folks to move forward on that. Public input. If you were here Last week, when the Environmental Commission had its public hearing on our weed ordinance, this place was jam full. Public input, big time. We had 23 speakers from the public come up here and state their case, whether they were for weeds or against weeds. Believe me, a number of them came up to me and said they were so pleased and so surprised, one lady said, that we would allow them to come forward at a meeting like that. This is what public input is all about. We've had public input tonight on our UDO. We will continue to do that. Tonight was one part of what I talk about, two microcosms on our committee of the whole meetings. They're either very short, or as we know, sometimes they're very long and extend into our city council time. Between now and hopefully the 1st of September, we will have a couple of special committees of the whole, and we will restructure that, so we will probably move committees of the whole, regular committees of the whole, to either one topic prior to our city council meetings or perhaps to another day. We do have several special committees of the whole that people should be aware of. On July 25, Annie Glidden North, a huge project, a huge arena that we need to talk about at length. On the 16th of August, we will be talking about our TIF phase-out. How much money do we have in TIF? What do we want to do? Get some consensus from council as to what we feel we should be spending our TIF dollars on. We also have a regular extension of our STEAM COW, Committee of the Whole meeting, in the latter part of August. Mike alluded to the state of Illinois. Work has resumed on Route 23. There was one key component in the state legislature and in the budget, and it's called the LGDF, the Local Government Distribution Fund. There's still some conversation in Springfield about the possibility of reducing that by 10% to each and every municipality. We're keeping our eye on the radar screen to see exactly what they decide to do with that. But right now, as Mike suggests, the money should be rolling back into not only our communities, but to so many social service agencies and education institutions across this state. Very quickly, this weekend, the veterans groups in town will start at Hy-Vee with a veterans motorcade that will honor many of our seasoned veterans, older folks. They will be making stops at Pine Acres, Barb City Manor, DeKalb County Nursing Home, Heritage Woods, Oak Crest, Bethany Healthcare, and then on to a couple of sites in Sycamore. I will be working with Frank Bierlotzer in attending many of those. This Saturday night, the Drum and Bugle Corps is expected to attract between 8,000 and 15,000 people to our community at Husky Stadium. I talked to Debbie Armstrong from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Most of our hotels are full. They were completely full last weekend as we hosted the junior track and field exposition. On Sunday, Kishwaukee Kiwanis will be sponsoring its annual Biking with Beansy ride throughout the region. And Gary Mullis will have his country music show collecting school supplies at the Taylor Street High Rise this Sunday. I want to commend our police and fire departments for doing such a great job on having a very successful 4th of July fireworks day last week, and it just shows we have great cooperation with the DeKalb Park District. We have many upcoming events in the city of DeKalb and the region, and I would encourage folks to get out and celebrate the marvelous things we have going on in our community. That concludes my remarks. I'd like now to go down the row here and see what we have, first of all, from Sue Herman, our city clerk.
Thank
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I actually did want to mention that I am in the process of organizing a cleanup DeKalb day. The tentative date for that is going to be Saturday, August 19th. If anybody has any information that they'd like to give me as far as just, I've never done this before, so anything that you guys could think of that would be helpful in this kind of event, please come forward. That's all.
Dean Frieders.
No report, Mayor.
Assistant City Manager Patty Happenstedt.
Hi, Mayor. I just want to remind the community that they should go to the city website and continue to register to receive the e-news. City staff continues to work on providing pertinent information to the community through the utilization of that new method of communication. So we are in the process of preparing the next newsletter. So if you haven't already registered, if you go to the DeKalb website homepage, on the quick links, there is a e-news quick link that will take you to how to register to begin receiving these very valuable information, which highlights a lot of the community activities and events that are happening throughout DeKalb.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. Yeah, our city manager, Anne Marie Gore, is on vacation and being adequately served here and serviced by Patty. It's been great. I know you've kept busy here since Anne Marie's been gone, and thank you for your service.
It's been an honor.
Yeah. Our police chief, Gene Lowry.
To the council and our community and all those who supported us over the weekend at our Police Benevolent and Protective Association fundraiser. That's a charitable arm of the police department that does many things within the community. I just wanted to say thanks for all who came out and golfed or supported in some way, to our electeds as well that came out. Thank you very much.
Fire Chief Eric Hicks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We had a question early on. What do you do with those illegal fireworks that were not set off? Well, we don't have a good answer for that, but if you do have some laying around and you would like to get rid of them, contact Chief Lauer and myself, and we'll see what we can do to dispose of them for you.
Thank you. Interim Finance Director Jeff Wilkins.
As the mayor mentioned, the LGDF fund, the 10% reduction, we'll be watching that closely because they're supposed to accelerate payments to 14 versus 12, but whether those will actually hit our fiscal year or hit the next fiscal year, we'll be watching that closely. Also, grant payments for construction projects such as the library, we'll be watching for those, but no promises that that'll actually happen in our fiscal year or the state fiscal year. So obviously with 170-some thousand of vendors that are owed money, I guess there's not going to be any promises that we'll get ours in the first few weeks. So,
thank you. Community Development Director Joe Ellen Charlton.
Hi, just wanted to mention one of the items that you approved on your consent agenda dealt with the Kishwaukee Fest. That's a week-long event that will occur at the end of this month. It begins on July 24th. And just real quickly, they are starting that night with an East End block party, and that's intended to provide exposure to the businesses located on the east end of Lincoln Highway. The Family Fun Fest is on Tuesday. Jazz at the Mansion is on Wednesday. They're going to be accommodating the DeKalb Farmers Market on Thursday. The parade that we talked about during tonight's agenda is on Friday night, beginning at 6 p.m. And then the event rounds off on Saturday with Bacon Palooza, wine testing, and a Corvette car show. Also doing a skate, street, and youth fitness event at the skate shop in downtown DeKalb. So I would encourage everybody to check their website. They have a lot more information and support this event.
Thank you. Public Works Director Tim Holdeman.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, work will start on Illinois 23 with the passage of the budget. We'll be seeing curb and sidewalk work this week and possibly some overlay of the road surface later this week, early next week. There will be nighttime closures, lane closures. We're moving forward with our city street maintenance program, including 10th Street and Market, where we're working on the curbs there, and we'll progress on those projects. I want to thank Alderman Fagan for coming out on Saturday. We've met with some residents on 2nd Street regarding their curb for their brick street, and we got consensus on the direction there. So thank you, Alderman Fagan.
And finally, our IT Director, Mark Thorson. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Any other comments for the good of the cause? If not, we do not have an executive session tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Markwart,
Second?
second by Fagan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? We are adjourned.